Hey everyone, welcome back to the latest edition of MSP Business School. And today we are together. I'm here together with Tim McNeil and Robb Rogers as always. And this is going to be another one of those roundtables we do. Today and on the day that we're recording this, I know DattoCon was going on, and heavy topic over at DattoCon today was around concepts like security. And what I want to do is get into a conversation of how does risk support the sales process.
Sure.
I guess let's open it up with, guys, you talk to sales reps every day. What are the themes you're hearing out there from the sales community in terms of opportunity, in terms of customer concern? What's the pulse out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Two things that I'm sure we've talked about at one point or another. First, the main thing is security, right? I mean, you had mentioned DattoCon. We were just a vendor in that today, and it was surprising even to me, who has been associated with the industry, especially been ingrained in it since 2009, seeing how COVID's changed things over the last 18 months. It was still surprising to me how much talk there was around security. It was to say it was the theme would be an understatement. So I think that's like front and center right now. And the other thing that we've mentioned, it's probably been a while since we brought it up, but I think another thing is just, again, kind of loosely associated with security is are we going back to the office? Are we not going back to the office? Are we shutting down the office? Are we scaling back the office? And those are the two main things that are going on currently. But man, the security, it's cybersecurity. Do we get cyber insurance? What does it really mean? Is it going to work for us? Will it actually pay out if we get hit? Like there's just a lot of questions around that right now.
On my side, like talking to my reps, our reps, we have reps all over the nation, and the number one thing that they're hearing from their prospects, and the prospects are taking it up like a sponge, is talking about resilience and cybersecurity and what do I do if, and why should I care if, and they ask so many questions, that the rep is getting a little like, oh gosh, I don't know what to do here. We're getting bombarded with reps trying to field questions from prospects about security and cyber resilience and all of it.
Yeah, it's such a multi-layered concept, right? That, you think of all the different piece points that go into a security stack, you realize there's different things that have different impacts, right? And that's kind of, when I hear what you guys are talking about, what it really says to me is there needs to be an overarching conversation, which is overlooked by the sales rep and the account teams, about, hey, Mr. Customer, what are you willing to tolerate as it relates to risk, right? Because Timmy, even what you were saying about work from home, this whole new work from home hybrid environment has opened up a whole new door of risky potential out there that didn't exist even 2 years ago at this stage, right? Or at least not at the scale and volume that it does today. And I think where reps get stuck, and we can definitely go into this in deeper detail, is they don't know how to start the conversation with the customer to get to where the pain point is, to then figure out which of the solutions in their bag they're going to sell. So I see a lot of times younger sales reps just kind of throwing out scenarios, putting the fear, uncertainty, and doubt in through these different tentacles, hoping one sticks, right?
Yeah.
And we've got to get a much more solidified sales process, in my opinion, to really be successful at security sales. And as always, to uncover where that sale might not really be an opportunity as well. That we're not assuming they need something that they don't really feel that they're risk tolerant enough that they're not going to take it on.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Brian, one of the things that the reps that we're trying to coach, and we role play this and we coach the rep, but the fear, uncertainty, and doubt is attacks the reptile brain, right? The fight or flight response. And if they overload it, the prospect just freezes up, and they become no action, right? They don't do anything because they're terrified of what you're saying. They have no idea if you're telling the truth, and it just becomes a big scare, right? And so they freeze up. And they're not demonstrating the value of what this is going to do to help them. It's more to hit that shock value. And that's the problem that I see. And I don't know how we get these reps to really get past that FUD factor and get them into the assistance, the factor that we're trying to do.
But I also think an extension to that is, you look at the salespeople, they're struggling with those conversations. It's amazing how many MSP owners struggle with those conversations, right? So how is the salesperson supposed to know what to do if the owner can't always articulate it correctly either? So it's, there is a little bit of a trickle down, I think, from that standpoint, but yeah, it does need to progress to more of a value. And, we've had plenty of people on this show or this podcast in the past that are security focused. And I would, if anybody's listening to this, I'd recommend taking a look back at some of them. If you don't have somebody that you're partnering with already, there are resources that are available to you to help you create that value story without having to reinvent the wheel.
Well, I'm going to hit you guys with I'm going to kind of respond to a couple things that each of you said. So first, I'm going to start with you, Robb, about, that reptilian brain and kind of overloading with the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The reality is, for the end user, those are all what if scenarios, right? This can happen. This might happen. This could happen, but it's not connected to them, at least not yet. Right? Unless they've gone through that. We've all seen the memes out there, security budget before a cyber event, and there's 2 quarters in a bucket. And after a security event, it's overflowing with hundreds, right? The reality is, when we're selling to fear, uncertainty, and doubt, we're selling to a what if scenario, and people don't tend to buy off of what ifs, not quickly at least, right? So we got to shift the conversation and get people's mindset in a different manner there. The second piece of that, goes into a little bit of what you were saying, Tim, too, about the MSP themselves. You have to, too many MSPs have decided to be an MSSP. And they thought by the S, I'm convinced the S that they think about is stack. Because all we hear is about the security stacks, right? So as long as I have a security stack, now I can add the other S and be an MSSP, right? We know it all stands for managed service security provider. But I really think that people feel the minute I got a stack of stuff, I can do that. Because the VAR mentality was, as long as I got a stack of stuff, I can do things.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
The problem is, as I referenced a little bit earlier, security penetration threats come in so many different forms, right? There's the external threats that penetrate my firewall. There's the internal threats, rogue wireless access points and people connecting to your network. There's the bigger internal threats, people you employ that sit at your desks, malicious or not malicious, right?
Clicking that button.
Then you get into the wider spread threats, which are, the people that are, then you get to the black hat hackers, as far as I'm concerned. For the majority of us, they're not really the biggest threat out there, although they are looking for points of vulnerability. And as ransomware has really shown us, it doesn't matter big or small. We all have some checkbook. And at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the $5 million check they're looking for. They're more than happy to take $51,000 checks too today. And, and it's really about that piece of the puzzle. So when you think about security and a security framework, man, there's a lot of things to do. And why are we having such a tough time getting cyber insurance? And why is this becoming such a bigger focal point in our industry? Because too many MSPs jumped the gun, went to MSSP without really having the framework put into place yet. And I'm not criticizing the MSPs. We all run to opportunity, man. And I would have been right there with you with my MSP too.
Totally.
But what we got to do is kind of, say to ourselves, well, if we're really not putting up the penetrative barrier and we're not really equipped to do this, we better find ways to do it. Now, one of the good outcomes that have come from this is you're seeing the large, widespread success of outsourced SOC opportunities, right? Where now people can employ, first of all, they can get funded. Then they can employ, because they have the means to employ those senior level specialists we don't have and centralize those operations. And now the MSP is really becoming the project management and relationship management point on that. Similar to what we did with level 1 help desk back in the day too, right? But now we're doing it at scale, and we're seeing more and more of those services there, which obviously brings more comfort to all those involved, including the insurance companies, who I will never stick up for, right? None of us are sticking up there.
Well,
But you
I think it's illegal to stick up for them.
I mean, insurance companies are great until you need them.
But you can't understand why they're having a tough time doing this. It's tough to underwrite something when you don't know what the edges are, right? You get a car insurance policy and you sign up for 2 million of liability. They know the worst I'm ever going to pay on this claim is 2 million. And based on my accident counts and all the probabilities out there, I can say to you, hey, Rob, you got to spend $1,000 a year on your car insurance, right? But now go to the other side. Just think of the Kaseya event, right? Kaseya got hit. Then down one more stream, their MSPs got hit.
Yeah.
And then down one more stream from there, their end users got hit to some degree.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people that can come sue you. And that's a huge problem, right?
Yeah,
so the risk the cyber insurance has is, I don't know if this is a $10 million problem or a $10 billion problem, right? Depending on who I'm insuring.
Yeah.
So there are steps that are going in play to help remediate this from a risk level to the industry. One of them, Connecticut, believe it or not, is one of the more forward-thinking countries, our states on this. Connecticut, Utah, and Ohio were 3 states that adopted the fact, and legislation went into effect here in Connecticut on October 1st, that are saying, look, if you as an end user business pick a security framework, whether it's CMMC or CIS, implement those controls and demonstrate progress to those controls. If a cyber event happens, you can no longer be sued punitively for the damages. This puts a fence around it, right?
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't solve the people downstream's problem necessarily, and we'll come back to that, maybe not today, but in a future conversation. But what it does is it helps put a fence around what that claim is going to be. Now it's the cost to remediate, and maybe whatever credit monitoring or whatever services have to dovetail off of that. But you can't have each individual company suing you for their livelihood at whatever their size and scale is as well. This is going to help defray some of the insurance risk that's there, which is going to make these policies, I think, a little bit more valuable to everybody that's concerned and allow us to move forward. But I think what we've said in this big circular conversation here is, hey, you got to be talking to your customers about risk versus reward, right?
And now, Brian, hold on. I want to bring it back to this, because this is where the reps are really struggling, and this is where you excel, right? So talk to us about, with risk tolerance and like how you demonstrate this product through the rep's eyes to the prospect, and what do you do to try and really get that prospect to understand not fear, but tolerance?
All right, so I'm gonna put this in a different way to you, Rob. You make some money. My guess is you got some level of a portfolio out there, and somebody worked with you, or maybe you worked yourself to determine what your risk tolerance was in your portfolio. We hear it all the time, right? Hey, let's get some money in bonds. That's secure money. And then let's take a little investment, in your risk profile changes as you get older, right? When you're 25 putting money into that, you could be a cowboy and try to go after high growth vehicles. As you get into your 40s and 50s and you're looking at college, you might get more balanced. And as you get towards the end of the rainbow, as you're looking to exit out, now you don't want as much volatility and you want to put security there.
Right.
Really, we're having the same conversation, and we are now the advisor, right? We're having the same conversation with the customer. We want to understand what their tolerance for risk is and what they want to look like. If you're required to meet compliance as a risk factor, you have to take into your overall profile. Do you hold a lot of customer data, even if you're not compliant? And can that be a company changing course if data got released, right?
Mhm.
Reputation risk in that side. And then what is your output? Does it not matter at all, right? We can't go in with blinders that every company we talk to needs the exact same security systems, as much as we love to standardize our stack, right? We have to understand that ownerships are different too. I used to talk about this in my MSP days all the time when I was talking about, look, you can't sell the same way to everybody. I could be working with two identical 10-man accounting firms. Accounting principally hasn't changed in over 100 years, right?
Yeah.
What has changed in their business? They used to only care about refreshes. Now they might care about security a little bit too, because they're there, but their systems don't change. There's really only one way to do a general ledger. Yes, they can hook more into it, la, la, la. But then it's on ownership. You might have one ownership that really feels, hey, I want to protect my client's data. I care about their confidentiality more than I care about my own, and I'm going to invest into locking it down. You might have another account, that same accounting group that looks exactly the same on the service might say, I don't care. I just do taxes. If they go away, I'll get another customer to give me $400. Two different mindsets there. So when I talk about risk tolerance, Rob, what we're trying to assess with the customer is, what do they view their perception to risk? And I'd even challenge your CEO when you're having that conversation. Have you asked your line of business managers how they evaluate risk? Because you don't want anybody, if you think, so if I'm a CEO and I've got a board I got to report to, and I tell them we're doing everything we can to keep our risk profile, let's just use a scale of 1 to 5 for simplicity, right? We want to be, the board is directed that we want to have as minimal risk as possible in our IT environments. We want to be at a 5. We have almost no tolerance for risk. But I got a guy that's my point of contact, who's also my buyer, who has direct responsibility for purchases under X. So he doesn't have to go upstream and get approval as long as it's in his budget. And that guy views security at a 3 or 4, because maybe, and I hate to say it, maybe his bonus and incentive is tied to savings percentage on the overall projected budget. So now I'm lowly little sales rep coming in, and I'm talking to you, Tim, about upgrading your firewall, right? Hey, Mr. Customer, your security services are out. This might be a good we can renew those one more time, but we're going to run out 8 months into this where it's no longer going to be supported. But, what you really should do is get a new firewall, right? And that guy who doesn't have the same, who's downstream says, well, if I don't buy this firewall this year and I wait until it's fully unsupported, because I can always call up and pay for support if I need it.
Yeah.
Maybe I can save $5,000 and I get 20% of everything I save, and I'm just using numbers, right? So now it becomes a personal bias in this decision. Well, unwittingly and unknowingly, he has now just dropped my risk tolerance probably from a 5 at least down to a 4. And depending on the size and scale of the project, maybe even a 3, right? And those things need to be communicated organizationally. I don't think many businesses do a good job of communicating risk, but there is some level of thought in the CEO's head of what they are managing risk to. Now, they do financial risk all the time. Risk analysis started in the financial sector. So they're looking at their cash flows. They're looking at their lending limits. Banks are looking at their debt covenants in order to determine whether they're going to continue to extend credit or try to call some of that back. We need to have those same conversations about IT, letting them understand these are where your points of vulnerability is. It's okay to demonstrate your customer's not at a 5. But you got to understand that. Now let's take a different scenario. CEO doesn't care as much about risk. Hey, we don't have to be locked down here. We don't have any compliance concerns to think about. We hold minimal employee and customer data, but we should definitely make sure we've got that taken care of. I'm not worried about my intellectual property. What we do is kind of commoditized. So I'm not so much worried about my files and my Excels, those kind of things. There's no big secrets there, but I'm concerned about X and Y. So I would probably rate myself a little bit less in lockdown. We might want to be a 4, maybe a 3+. Well, that's something a sales rep needs to understand too, because if you're going in there with guns blazing, saying you need this entire security stack and all the great things we're going to do, you're not going to get there. So I usually really use this risk tolerance concept to understand where's each person I'm dealing with in the decision maker influencer chain feel about risk.
Okay, so hold on a second, Brian. So you've given us a qualitative analysis of a 1 to 5 ranking, right? Are you saying for the rep to just like kind of wing it on their 3 and 4 and 5? Or are you saying to build a quantitative list here for a rep to understand if you have, that gets wieldy, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're also, I mean, it depends on size and scope, but you got to talk in the sales process at general levels, right?
Okay.
And we do this as part of our account management process when I'm working with my customers over in Ramp Camp. We talk about this. We have what we call business insights form that goes out. And one of the questions there is, evaluate your company's tolerance for risk in IT on a scale of 1 to 5. Then just like an NPS, we'll say 1 is very low, 3 is moderate, 5 is no tolerance, doors closed, ajar. We're one step away.
Zero trust.
We're one step away from unplugging the systems, because that's the only way we can really lock them down, right?
Right.
And we're using it in generalizations. Hey, and let's assume, Tim, you're my point of contact. Rob, you're the CEO for the scenario. Mm-hmm. I'm having a conversation with Tim. And again, this might be at different meetings, right? They're not going to be necessarily at the same time, depending on where I am in the sales cycle. But I'll say, hey, Tim, as you're addressing and building your IT, infrastructure, how do you view risk? Have you guys assigned kind of a number to risk on a, let's say on a scale of 1 to 5, or I don't care how you tell me it, but, how do you view risk? Are you guys totally risk averse, or do you fall somewhere further down the spectrum? And I'll get that reply. Then in a meeting where, Rob comes in, let's say Rob comes in on the second call, now that I've been vetted by my point of contact in that first call. Now I'm going to look at Rob, and I'll be open about it. I'll say, hey, and don't give away the answer yet, Tim. I just want to see how how the each of you thinks together. Rob, I asked Tim about his perception of risk tolerance for your organization as it relates to IT on a scale of 1 to 5. He gave me his answer, and I just love to hear yours. My guess is they'll be exactly the same, but I just want to make sure that we're all speaking from the same page here before I go telling you need everything. And you don't want me to tell you that. Right. And at that stage, I'll get the answer there. Now, if they're different, that's going to get offered up by Tim anyway. Wow, you think it's a 5? Dude, we are not a 5. Oh, you want a 3? Well, good. I was just about to over-architect it. Yeah, theoretically, I might be losing sale, but I'm not, right? Because the truth is they were never going to buy my 5 anyway, because it was going to have to go upstream for financial approval, right?
Exactly.
So now I'm getting an idea of what I need to cobble together in this. And then I can be a good advisor too, because now when I come to sell, and now I want to protect myself in my own company, right? We talked about the cyber liability insurance and all that already. Now I can look at them and go, okay, guys, by implementing this, I think we're satisfying your 3. This is what it's going to solve for you. But understand, some risk that's left on the table includes X, Y, and Z. And that might be, hey, we're not fully protecting the mail coming inbound completely. Some links can get through, whatever the case may be. We're now able to paint the scenarios and then allow them to say, oh, I didn't know that would be sitting outside that. I need more. But here's what we've done in this whole process. We've shifted the fear, uncertainty, and doubt sale that, hey, guys, you got to do this because this might happen, into something meaningful for them. Right.
Yeah, I like it.
And now you're able to have a conversation that has them. You could still pepper in some fear, uncertainty, and doubt, but now you can do it in a different way, right? Now you're saying, look, this is how it's going to help you directly. And it's also going to help you prevent against this happening, which is still a what if scenario for you, but hopefully becomes less of a what and more of an if, that kind of thing. So that's really, how we use risk tolerance as part of kind of the overall process to understand where the customer's risk ratings are, and also know, quite frankly, what's the liability. This is not a salesperson's problem, but think of an ownership level, kind of understand what risk we're going to take on too. If a customer tells us we're a 1, we probably don't want that customer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because we're just opening up the door for us to get the liability.
Right.
I mean, to that point, what do you do if you're a salesperson and you go in, you're talking to a prospect and they say that they're a 4, but when push comes to shove, you present them with a level 4 worth of risk tolerance, and they really are 2. Like, how do you bridge that gap? I mean, what do you make them sign off on things?
Let's start with that. If I put out what I think's a 4, and they thought they were a 4, but I'm showing that they're a 2, that's an education thing, right? Then we got to say, well, look, these are all your points of penetration right now. Do you think that matches a 4? Again, it takes some work, but you got to educate them, right? And then the other side is they may want to be a 4, aspire to be a 4, but their budget can only allow them to get to a 2
Yeah.
now. So now you got to build a framework that says, okay, how are we going to spread this out? Now it goes back to pure road mapping 101. How can we spread out the spend over time and get you where you need to be? And these are the things we recommend you start with, because they're going to give you the most bang for the buck. Most MSPs look at their customer relationships as marathons, not sprints. So if that means sacrificing some profit today by putting in a project that has a little bit more meaning to it, and then coming back to it a year from now, it's okay. Eventually you're getting that money either way. Sales rep might not be as excited about it, but we all have to understand it ebbs and flows. Now, if the customer can't be convinced they're at a 2 when they're a 4, Tim, which I think is really where you were going, that's a whole other problem, right? Then you got to assess whether or not you're willing to take on the risk, knowing it's coming downstream now. And yes, you should get them to acknowledge it. We have, again, not to pitch VCIO Toolbox here, but on our recommendations, we have a formal adopt and decline system when we show recommendations. If they decline it, we get a timestamp. We then produce a report to them that has our language at the top saying whatever we want to say. By receiving this, you acknowledge that you've declined these projects on such and such a date. And VCIO Toolbox doesn't have to take the risk on that, is not going to be identifiable risk on this, right? And you get that out. And now you have a proof point too. You're not looking for that email that went out to from a sales rep's email box who's no longer there. You're not looking for that magic proposal. You've got it in a concise, statement. And if they're not willing to take on that risk, they're telling you also what the future is going to be like, right? Almost like what we talked about recently in a fireside chat here, Rob.
That's right. That's right.
They're really telling you, I just don't care. And then you got to really make a final assessment on this.
Yeah. Then the responsibility is back on you, right? And you got to make your decision.
So that's where you can really use risk as a tool to not only gauge, all aspects of the relationship, but also drive home sales with purpose, right? And we're not just coming from a what if, fear, uncertainty, and doubt basis.
Okay. All right. Well, this was a good one, fellas. I love these where we start to dissect and, figure out the puzzle of how to, get the sales reps to make more money and the owners to make more money. Right. And this is one of those that we're at the forefront. It's the Wild West right now, and trying to understand and how to sell this. And right now with the fear, uncertainty, doubt model, I just don't think it's the best model out there. Or it's just making people freeze up.
I'll close with, I've always said this, right? If you do this right, it's a win-win for both teams. You're making the sale. That's, of course, the win to your company. But truthfully, you're improving the customers and meeting them where they want to live. And everybody's on the same page. And this is what fosters trust in the relationship. So we retain that relationship for as long as we can. So, use this as you will. But I think if you're not having a conversation about what risk the customer's willing to take on, you're missing a huge opportunity.
And it turns it away from fear and scaring, which puts you at opposite sides of the spectrum, and puts you guys back on the same side of the table where, you guys are like working together to figure out how you can, then move their business forward without scaring the crap out of them, basically. Right. And, with that, fellas, that's it for this time. Any closing thoughts, Tim, on this one?
No, I mean, honestly, there were a bunch of things that you just said that I was going to kind of echo. So,
okay.
I mean, look, there's a lot of, there's just a lot of knowledge-based and knowledge-based selling and value-based selling that should be taking place when it comes to any security discussion right now. So
there's a lot of help out there that our prospects need, and we're here to help them get there without doing it through a scare tactic. Fellas, that's it for us today. I really appreciate you both coming on here and talking about this risk tolerance. Brian, I love that idea and that thought process of doing it in a risk tolerance way. For anybody who's looking to find out more about this topic, hit us up, talk to us on LinkedIn, shoot us an email. We'd love to talk to you about it. And if you have any ideas out there that you would like us to discuss, expand upon, if you've gotten ghosted on a deal and you want us to try and help you through that process, we'd love to help. Shoot us an email, or through our emails or through LinkedIn. We'd love to have you. Also, this episode will be up on MSPBusinessSchool.com and anywhere that you get your podcast, to include YouTube. So please go there, like, subscribe, and we'd appreciate it. Guys, that's it for this time. I wish you guys all the best. Talk to you next time.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye.